Governor David Ige is holding a press conference right now at the Hawaii State Capitol and is joined by state and Hawaii County leaders with the very latest information on this eruption. We're going to take you there right now.
Arc feeding lava flows upslope of the Mauna Loa Weather Observatory. Lava flows are not threatening any downslope communities at this time, and all indications are that the eruption will remain in the northeast rift zone. Volcanic gas and possibly fine ash and Pele's hair may be carried downwind, so certainly we would ask those with respiratory sensitivities to take precautions to minimize exposure. All schools are open. No evacuations have been ordered by the Hawaii County Civil Defense at this time. And I just would want to encourage people to stay away. The rift zones are in very small, isolated areas high up on Mauna Loa. No one should be making any changes to visitors trying to or have scheduling visits to the islands at this point in time. And certainly Mauna Loa eruptions are very different than Mauna Kea eruptions. And we certainly would encourage everyone to stay tuned to Hawaii County Civil Defense as they will be monitoring and providing information very, very in a timely way. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, aloha. Major General Ken Hara, Adjutant General for the State of Hawaii Department of Defense. Although the flows currently aren't threatening lives or property, Mauna Loa eruptions can be very dynamic. So to ensure that we remain responsive and ready, the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency activated their Emergency Operations Center this morning at 1 a.m., so they're fully activated, and they're in close coordination with Hawaii County, the Hawaii County Civil Defense, other state and federal agencies, and the Hawaii Volcanoes Observatory, and our other federal partners. So additionally, the Hawaii National Guard is on standby, but no one is activated at this time. Typical requests for assistance for this type of emergency would be incident awareness and assessment type missions, air and ground evacuation, security, logistics, and communications. And also we have 2 guardsmen embedded in the Hawaii County EOC. That's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to turn it over to Mayor Mitch Roth on Hawaii Island. We're having some audio difficulties. Can you hear us, Mayor Roth?
I can hear you on my cell phone. I can't hear you on the
Yeah.
television.
Okay, I can hear him on my cell phone, but I can't hear him on the television either.
Let me,
Oh, okay, now we can hear you, Mayor. Yep, we can hear you now. Go ahead, Mayor.
All right. Hello, everybody. You know, we've, hang on, I gotta turn off my phone over here. Sorry, we're having some audio difficulty over here. So on our side, we've activated our civil defense, our EOC. We feel pretty comfortable with the situation. I think we hear from Ken Hahn from GS in a few moments here. Right now, it seems like the lava is going to a positive place as far as keeping away from the public and everything like that, away from property. We have, like I said, certified civil defense. We feel very confident and ready for the situation. Again, sorry, I'm having problems hearing any of the audio on the other side.
Okay, thanks so much, Mayor Roth. We'll give him a call back.
I'm not sure if you guys are able to hear me. Sorry, I can't hear you on the side.
Yeah, we heard you just fine. So thank you very much, and we'll call you back if we have any more questions.
We can hear you loud and clear
Yeah.
here.
Okay, next I'd like to turn it over to Luke Myers at
I can
Haima.
actually hear you guys, but
Okay.
I can hear you, but I wasn't able to hear anything from the podium.
Okay. Well, thanks for bearing with us, everyone.
I can hear you, Mayor Roth,
Okay.
but I
Well-
cannot hear the podium either. So.
Okay, Luke, nobody can hear the podium. Okay. Well, that'll make it difficult to call on the next speaker. So we don't have anyone else in person yet. So I don't know, Luke,
Yeah, maybe,
can the USGS folks hear us? No one cares. Does everyone have a sign that says, "You go next, Luke"?
Please stand by.
All right, well, if anyone from the Zoom wants to go next.
Go ahead, you're on right
Oh,
now.
yeah,
Go ahead, Luke.
thank you. Yeah, let Luke know he can
Do
go.
you have any statement?
Okay, Luke, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Apologies for the technical difficulties here from Berkheimer. We've worked in the last half day with supporting Hawaii County, with our federal partners and state partners to pre-position some resources and work on overall situational awareness. Obviously, as the mayor mentioned, we're fortunate at this point in time that the lava has went in a bit better direction for impacts to people and property. We almost understand that this type of incident can be very dynamic and things can change. We challenge the public over there on the Big Island, visitors and those that live there, to keep their guard up as we move the rest of this incident. I'll look for questions. Thank you.
Okay, we've got Cyrus with Mayor Roth's office who's going to go let USGS and Volcano Observatory folks know that they're up next. So hopefully we'll get them.
Normally you guys have to drop probably this way.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with them, Jesse. What do you need me to do?
Please ask them to go ahead. They're up. They're alive.
Yeah, just like who are we talking to?
Oh, they're speaking to the media about giving their portion of the briefing.
Okay.
Sorry about the audio.
So, yeah, I'm Ken Hunt from the USGS Hawaii Volcano Observatory. I'm here with Talmadge Magno from Hawaii County Civil Defense. And this eruption started late last night and on into early this morning. It began at the summit of Mauna Loa, as most people know now, in Vale caldera. It covered almost the entire floor of Vale with lava. Fissure ran from the north to the south end of there. The fissure did, as we can see this morning, did actually leave the actual big caldera, but stayed in what we consider the summit area and produced some lava flows that were visible from Kona last night that appeared to be heading to the south and west, which they were. They only made it a couple kilometers from the caldera. Early this morning, around 5 a.m., we started to pick up lava flows moving to the northeast, and the locus of seismic activity also moved in that direction. And we confirmed at 6:30 this morning with overflights that lava flows were moving from fissures that had opened up on the northeast rift zone. So what this means is that the volcanic activity progressed from a summit eruption to a rift zone eruption, and Mauna Loa chose the northeast rift zone to be the locus of eruptive activity. This means that, as far as we know in any historic precedents, that there has never been a eruption of Mauna Loa that activated both rift zones at the same time or during the same eruption. So we presume at this point that all of the future activity is going to be on the northeast rift zone of Mauna Loa and not on the southwest rift zone. So those residents in that area do not have to worry about lava flows. And currently right now, because the northeast rift zone empties into the saddle area, there's no real habitation up there. Loa training area, their facilities are outside of where we consider any initial lava flows to go. And the only real facility up there is the Mauna Loa Weather Observatory, which is not directly threatened, but there's a chance its road could perhaps be cut by these lava flows. In the long term, Eventually this kind of lava flow is very similar to what happened in 1984 and potentially could threaten populated areas around Hilo. But we're looking at somewhere around a week before we expect lava to get anywhere near in that direction. We're hoping that it will parallel the 1984 eruption in becoming more viscous as time goes on, and hitting flatter slopes around the saddle that slow it down. And this actually prevented the lava from getting into Hilo. And historically, this has been the case. Only a couple of eruptions have made it into the outskirts of what is current Hilo. So we're hoping that this lava flow, while it will be a big, spectacular event, it occupies a fairly small proportion of the island, and hopefully it will have relatively minor effect on the residents and visitors to the island.
Okay, thank you. That did not work. Okay, well, why don't we open up to questions to folks that are in the room right now? Would anyone like to ask the governor or General Hara or Director Char anything?
For questions for people
Yeah.
in the room.
Yeah.
Hi, Mahealani from Hawaii News Now. This question is for Governor Ige. You mentioned no visits to Hawaii Island. Are you asking people to cancel
No.
their travel plans to Hawaii Island?
No, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I said no one should change their current plans to travel to the island. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Wow, let's see, Talmadge just started talking there. Let's see. Hey, Talmadge. I gotta go on a different one.
Talmadge, can we ask you to start your statement over again, please?
There we go.
Okay, go ahead, Talmadge.
Okay. You should be able to hear me now. I'm Talmadge Magno, Civil Defense Administrator. Since September this year, when HBO alerted us of an escalation of status of Mauna Loa, or signs, seismicity, and inflation, we've been working with the community and our partners to get ready. And now we're into the active volcano. As things progress from the probably threatening the life safety issues on the southwest portion of the volcano has moved to the north side. So, we continue to monitor and urge the public to receive our messaging, go to our website for information, and access the HBO websites and products so that they are kept abreast as to what the volcano is doing. And then, as always, we operate a call center if there's other questions that aren't answered by our website.
Okay,
Okay, thanks so much.
Are
Are there any more questions for anybody in the room?
We can
We can ask the questions now to the folks on the Zoom, because I'm on Zoom.
Any more
Any more
questions?
questions?
Yeah. Actually, I do have a question for Governor Ige. I'm just kind of curious if you could share more information about the conversations going on with the governor-elect. Obviously, this event is happening as your administration is getting ready to transition. New administration coming in. So I guess, what kind of work are you guys doing together to for him to, officially step in?
Certainly, Governor-elect Green was on the status call that we had earlier today. And so certainly his administration is being included in the briefings as we prepare for the transition of authority on December 5th.
Okay, thanks, Governor. Okay,
Okay, let's open it up to some questions on Zoom.
we have
With KTV Island News. KITV, are you there?
Yes, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Question for Thomas and Ken as well. You talked a little bit about being similar or could be similar to 1984. So just wondering what kind of development, what's changed since 1984 as far as population, homes around Hilo? How much is that spread out to closer to where we were, where those flows went in 1984? And then for Ken too, while I have you both there, just if you could describe what it looks like. I heard there was some fountaining of there at the fissures this morning. So wondering what you could describe what it looks like as far as the actual eruption.
Sure. The eruption actually is taking place from 3 different fissures as of noon today. And they're offset a little bit from north to south as we go down the rip zone. They're about, they extend from about 3/4 of the way towards the summit to about halfway to the summit on the rip zone. And they go for probably somewhere between 1 and 2 miles. I don't have an exact distance on the length of them right now. The fountaining is relatively low, 100 to 200 feet along the fissures, and they're putting off gas but not much ash. And then the lava flows are coming out of the fissures as that lava that goes up in the air comes back down, and it produces lava flows that are flowing away from the fissures. Both those lava flows are moving off to the north side of the rip zone. There's one that's moving a little bit to the southeast side of the rip zone. Currently, there's nothing threatened by any of the lava flows that are being produced by these fissures at the moment.
Yeah, Mayor Ross, it was just having flown over there this morning, I can tell you between 1984 and now, the area that we're talking about has no homes or anything like that. So it's, you know, there wasn't any homes in 1984 and there's no homes anywhere near where the lava is fountaining right now as well.
Yeah, that's true. You know, the 1984 eruption got close to the Kalana subdevelopment, which really hasn't expanded greatly up on the kind of upper west side of Hilo.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is going to be from Jennifer Kelleher from the Associated Press.
Hi. At what point would civil defense recommend that schools close, and what would prompt officials to do that?
As we monitor the situation, the progress of the movement of the flow and the activity level of the volcano, if we, working with HVO, see any threat, possibility of threat based upon, you know, the direction of the flow forecast, in conjunction with, you know, what the schools and their locations, we'll work with DOE, and as we have been planning, and, you know, plan accordingly. They have been working up their plans as far as working with the other areas, the other districts on the island. So, you know, they have their plan as far as, you know, whether under some kind of threat, do they hold school or they don't hold school. We don't want to get in a situation where the school's in place, these kids that are there, and we have to evacuate them. So, you know, we monitor every aspect of the volcano to make sure we don't get into that kind of situation and communicate daily with DOE.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next question is from Michelle Broder-Van Dyke from Spectrum News Hawaii.
Hi, thank you. It sounds like homes are under threat, so how long will the Cow and Kailua Kona shelters remain open?
Well, we did keep them open because we did have a few families from the South Korea area at our Kona shelters, and we will probably review what the population is in the shelters this afternoon and make a determination of what needs to be open or what needs to be closed down.
Thank you. I see KITV4 has their hand up. Do you have another question?
Yes, another one for Ken. With Kilauea eruption, I guess the start of it, there was some old magma, old lava that was coming up at first. I don't know if you know what we're seeing with this particular one. And do we typically see after the initial stages of this, the lava flow gets starts to flow a little bit more? Or what can you expect, or what do you expect?
The Mauna Loa behaves a little bit differently than Kilauea in this way. Kilauea, if you noticed, to get down to the lower east drift zone, it moves mostly underground in an underground system of what we call dikes or large fractures. And on the way back to the surface, it intersected lava that has been in place, anywhere from, 20 to, 50, 60 years ago out in there, possibly even older. So that lava that had been stored was very sticky, and it slowed down the start of the eruption because the other lava has to push that out of its way before it can erupt. Mauna Loa starts at the summit, and the fissures move on the surface from the summit down. So it basically, what we call it is just unzipping the rift zone. So the lava is coming straight up to the surface, and it's making its own surface cracks down, and it generally is pushing the hot, fresh lava right out onto the surface throughout the entire eruption. So we don't see that same kind of effect, and that's one of the things about Mauna Loa is it starts at usually a high effusion rate and maintains that for a week or two, and those flows are fairly fast moving. That's why we were particularly concerned about the southwest rift zone, where there is a pretty big population on the slope of Mauna Loa. That's much less of a problem on the northeast rift zone.
And any idea on how much lava? I know we have plenty of footage of Kilauea and how this eruption compares to, say, that 2018 eruption.
Yeah, and we don't have a good handle on that yet. We haven't even talked to our field crews that have been out trying to get some estimate of that. We won't know that for a few days really very well until we can make repeated maps of what the area is covering and find out the volume of lava that's actually come out of the ground. My guess is, just looking at it, that we're dealing with something, let's just say it's in the order of magnitude of what the 2018 is, and we're talking about 50 to 100 or more cubic yards per second. And say the summit eruption right now is somewhere around 2 to 3 cubic yards a second, and a typical long-term eruption like Ku'uo'o was 3 to 5 cubic yards a second. So this is a large eruption. One of the big differences too is Mauna Loa is very large, and a large part of it is unoccupied, so there's a lot of space for the lava to roam up there. So while we can have very large lava flows and they can move fairly quickly down the slopes, they're going to have very little impact on people on the island.
Thank you. Our next question is from here in the room, from Mahealani Richardson from Hawaii News Now.
This question is for Talmud Magno or maybe even General Hara.
I'm sorry, Telman just had to step out.
Oh, okay.
But General Hara.
Well, General Hara, this question is for you. We're seeing images of Pele's hair or the volcanic glass in the Waikiki area. Are you getting any reports of ash or the glass actually falling in certain neighborhoods or areas?
I have not gotten any reports. Maybe Ken Hahn has a better answer to that, but they did say because of the inversion zone, they anticipate more of the sulfur dioxide and things like Pele hair getting trapped in the lower atmosphere, but I'll defer to HVL.
Mr. Hahn, would you like to add to that?
And since Dr. Libichar is here, is DOH going to issue any alerts, and what can you tell us about the volcanic situation?
So the Department of Health is monitoring the air quality. Currently there are, I believe it's about 10 different air monitoring stations around the Big Island, 8 of which monitor sulfur dioxide. And we're trying to get more of the portable monitoring units up there to try and set up a few more stations so that we can have a little bit more capacity in the near term. We also, just tagging on to what General Hara said, so with regard to ash and Pele's hair, those are things, the particulates that can be, you can wear a mask and it helps to protect against those kind of particulate matters, but it does not provide you any protection against the gases. So it's very dangerous to be in that environment, and that's why we would like people to stay away. As you heard Governor say, it can be very, very dangerous. But with regard to that, to the particulate matter, Pele's hair and whatnot, your N95, your KF94, those kind of masks will help filter some of that particulate matter. So it is worth wearing if you were in that situation. Bottom line, stay away from these gases. This is very, very dangerous.
Can I follow up on that? Andrew Gomes with the Star Advertiser. Dr. Char, if I could follow up, how close do you have to be, or how far away is it safe to be before the gases aren't really threatening to somebody?
Well, I don't think that's something I can answer. I think that may be better answered by the USGS folks. I think it has to do with, winds can shift at any time, and so I don't think there's necessarily, a safe level if you're trying to approach. It's better to be cautious and to be safe, but they would probably, KenHon would probably be a better reference for that. Right now, our air quality seems to be good from all the monitoring that we have, but we're keeping an eye on it, and it's definitely something that we will be tracking carefully.
Ken, can we turn it over to you to add to that air quality question?
I think that covers it pretty well, I mean, the worst air quality is up near the vents, but we can expect, now that the vents are getting down below the inversion level for this fog to accumulate beneath the inversion, so we're in the early stages of the eruption, we're going to see more fog accumulate and the concentrations of it pick up. So I don't have any reports directly of ash distributions or of exact fog, but there is pretty heavy SO2 moving north from the volcano. And I know that some of the modeling done shows that plume hitting Maui and stuff. So that, that's going to be a fact of life. Typically these eruptions last for 1 to 2 weeks, someplace in there. So we're probably going to be, having a deterioration of air quality for sure during that time period.
Thank you. Next question.
Yeah, the question is for Ken Han. You mentioned there, I was actually going to ask about the length. You said about 2 weeks, but can you explain a little bit more about this timeline of the eruption and where you come up with the 2 weeks? He's on mute.
Yeah. So the 2 week time period is looking at past historical eruptions. There's been 33 eruptions, and roughly that's kind of the general average of a rift eruption is about 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, someplace in that area. There's no guarantee that that is what we get. We've had eruptions that are much shorter and much longer. So we've had eruptions as long as a year come from the rift zones, and as short as just a few days. So we won't really know until the eruption's over how long it is going to be. But just for something to plan on, we're probably not looking towards a 3-month-long eruption like 2018, but something shorter. Be our best guess at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions in the room? Andrew?
Yeah. One more for Ken. Can you speak to the speed of the flows, maybe initially, and as recently, whether the speed has changed, and if so, how?
I can't really tell you right now because we don't have a lot of data back in from these lava flows. The general speed, of the lava flows is, I would just categorize it as moderate, probably, in the order of 1 to 2 to 3 miles per hour or something for the flow front advance. The lava in the channels, of course, when you see the video of it, is moving much, much faster in the channel. But what really matters is how fast the front of that flow is moving. So this will take us a couple days of measurements to get those speeds down, that we can calculate them. One day really isn't enough time, but there's, it's looking fairly normal for the slopes, which are gentler on the northeast rift zone than they are on the southwest rift zone. So there's nothing unusual about how this eruption is unfolding at this time.
Thanks, Ken. I see we have KITV has their hand up again. Do you have another question, KITV?
Another one for Ken. So with the lava on the surface, then is it pretty safe to rule out that this would be a more explosive type of eruption from Mauna Kea now that it started?
Yes, and it's Mauna Loa, right? Is what we're talking about?
Mauna Loa, sorry.
Yeah, and Mauna Loa typically has not had explosive eruptions in the past. So we weren't expecting anything terribly explosive from Mauna Loa anyways, but yes, at this point, we're definitely into the effusion, effusive, what we call it, or a lava-producing eruption with fairly low fountains. The lava will probably eventually neck down to a few vents instead of these longer fissures, but that'll take place over the next couple of days.
Okay, are there any more questions from anybody in the room? Okay, Governor, would you like to make a final statement?
Certainly, I just would want to encourage everyone, especially those on the Big Island, to be vigilant. Mauna Loa eruptions are different than Kilauea, and certainly stay tuned to Hawaii County Civil Defense. And I certainly would encourage anyone living in the area to pay attention to the USGS. They post updates quite frequently throughout the day, and that's the best source for status information on the eruption. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Well, after much anticipation, Mauna Loa erupted late last night, and you just heard from Governor David Ige at the state capitol, along with the Department of Defense and other state and county leaders. Some things that we do want to mention from that discussion: no threat to residential spaces as the eruption and the lava flow is isolated. No evacuations have been ordered either, but defense teams are on standby as this situation continues to develop. Now, those with trouble breathing should take precautions because of volcanic ash. N95 masks can be used to protect people who are there, who are nearby. And as air quality, as DOH mentioned, is constantly being monitored, health officials did caution those masks, those N95s, they do not protect against the volcanic gases. So they advise people to stay away if they can. Now, scientists with USGS, they also spoke, and they said that the eruption of Mauna Loa has migrated from the summit to the northeast rift zone. And as we mentioned, there is no confirmation of any evacuations, but there are shelters that are open. And so far, that includes the Old Kona Airport State Recreational Area and the Ka'u District Gym multi-purpose.